Welcome to another edition of the Roundtable. My name is Paul Dingham. Glad you are here. Today we are very honored to have the U.S. Congressman from the 10th District, Mr. Paul Mitchell. Welcome back to the Focus Set.
Good to see you again, Paul. Thank you.
Roundtable set. Nice to see you. We have talked many times over the last couple of years. You were so excited when you first came back from that first trip 2 years ago in January, and it was a new, exciting thing. Now you're back for the second go-around, and you've got 100 other people that have joined you. Talk to me about all these new recruits in the Republican and Democratic Party that you've seen.
Well, still excited to be there.
Yep.
It's a great honor to represent the district and opportunity. I have some empathy for the poor 100 new people as they wander around trying to find hearing rooms.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
It's pretty easy to get lost in the basement of the Capitol.
Restrooms.
They're everything. I mean, I think that's why I put a restroom off your office for members, is that they don't get lost doing that. But it's a great opportunity for me. It's helpful as I can look for. I know members now, so as I'm looking for sponsors to work on a problem, I can work across the aisle. I know where people are coming from. So many of the bills, I think all of them, I think about it, are bipartisan. They're working with other members trying to solve problems and not simply partisan issues, which are frankly sometimes often messaging bills and aren't really trying to solve a problem. For example, the bill I have with Roger Krishnamurthy from Illinois about stopping shutdowns, about not having any more shutdowns. A Democrat from Illinois who was in the Obama administration. And he and I would have put that together because we know where each other's coming from. We trust the motivations of each other. And I think that's important in Congress, is getting anything done, is working across the aisle.
You've been working bipartisan on a lot of different issues. That one there, the shutdown issue. Let's just touch on the shutdown while we're there. It was 35 days of anger and upset and hurt for lots of people.
I think it was 35 days of really not getting anything done.
Right, that's
and America deserves better. An awful lot of employees of the federal government did not get paid for over a month. Then they slowly get their back pay. I think you don't use people as leverage. We ought to be able to solve these problems without that by simply being responsible. I would have, in my opinion, this bill we just passed last week, I'd have voted to fund 6 of those agencies for the rest of the year and done a continuing resolution on Homeland Security, continue funding it while we resolve the border security issues, which were not resolved well in the bill. They wanted to keep, some of them wanted to keep them all together, particularly the other side of the aisle, to use as leverage. Leverage ought to be issues. Leverage ought to be a discussion where people are coming from and not simply using your employees as leverage. Never did that in the private sector. Who would do that in a million years? People shouldn't be forced to work, and many were, without getting a paycheck, but they're paying for child care, they're paying for gas, and they aren't getting paid. They can't afford to live that way.
It's just fairness.
There were people talking about, here's the irony, it's immoral to build a wall or a border barrier. It's also immoral to ask people to force people to work and not pay them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's immoral to do that. I don't agree it's immoral to protect our borders.
No.
So morality is kind of an interesting discussion for some folks around there. And it only takes a few of them to manage to make this a mess, and they did.
One of the ones that's been in the press recently over this issue was the contractors. I don't understand that, why they are hesitant to pay the contractors their back pay.
The problem with contractors is trying to figure out exactly what their losses were.
Oh, okay.
Is it payroll? Is it, and then the contractors, is it their profit they lost? The reality is, I think, private contractors have a responsibility for dealing with their issues under their contract terms. But to create some other mechanism only opens up Pandora's box, and we're not going to throw money out there. Okay. I don't think that's the best answer to resolving the issue. If there are outstanding issues we have with payroll for folks, then we should deal with that. But the discussions was wandering off into, well, they lost revenue for this and this profit. Reality is that's part of it.
So it's not as simple as I plowed that driveway, I should get paid.
Nor is it, nor is a contract with the federal government a guarantee of your profitability or your income stream.
Well, that part I understand.
It shouldn't be. That's the risk you run, unfortunately. It shouldn't be one you run, but it is one you run when you contract with the government.
Right. You're reintroducing a bipartisan school resource officer bill. What's that all about?
Well, when I met with school administrators, school teachers, parents throughout the district, the safety in our schools was a paramount issue. And we passed the Safe Schools Act last term. We put money into making schools, but they said harden schools, provide more facility, make facilities safer. One thing that is clear to me is that having a uniformed police officer as part of the school faculty, school staff, and rotating through the schools created a much safer environment. My oldest son was a school resource officer for a couple of years. He's a police officer. I had some insight into what that looks like. And one thing they do is they not only serve as a deterrence for potential mass shootings, which are horrendous, they also make a calmer environment. They stop some of the bullying, some of the violence between kids.
They become a friend.
Well, sometimes it's just, hey, dude, let's not do that here. We don't do that.
Right.
It's not about imposing law enforcement on them. It's just being there to say that's not how the world works. And I think it's a bipartisan bill again, because I think it's an important focus, to focus money to assist schools, communities. If they want to hire a school resource officer, the federal government will put money into it. They have to put money into it specifically for school resource officers, badged, uniformed police officers. I say that because they then know what to do with the local law enforcement, the police department. If they have an issue there, you can't have someone that isn't part of the police force doing that. That's not a safe environment then.
There was issues or programs like this a few years ago, and they would hire firemen and hire policemen for districts, and then the money ran out.
Yeah.
And the responsibility was left to the municipalities, and they all said, "Oh, we have any money." So, is that built into this proposal?
Well, it's a long-term authorization. We have to appropriate money all the time.
Right.
Any given day, that goes a circus.
It goes
But the
away.
intent is to keep the money there. I think again across the aisle, the belief is that this is an important thing to do, and people have a choice. Now, some people don't want to have more police in their schools. They don't have to.
Yeah.
They don't have to. But there are places, there are communities, most of mine, would have said they would be very supportive and are supportive of doing that.
Tax cuts, jobs for middle class, Enhancement Act. What's that?
Well, I don't believe the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was passed did enough to support families that are working. A lot of families, as you know, are two-income families. They are here, they are throughout the district, and they have child care costs. We want to do things to help them. So it increases the child tax credit. It increases the individual deductions. So in fact, if you're in that middle class and you're working, we want to make it better for you, essentially, to take less money out of your paycheck and send it to the government. Keep more of your money to raise your kids, live in a home, make your home better, save for their college, all those things. So it helps make it taxation be a little less on those families that are going to work every day. They get up and they should keep more of their money.
We should be so proud, and I think you are, because you were a business that educated people to work in the medical field.
Yes.
So you're so proud of people that do get up every day.
I believe most people will work. I believe most people want to work.
Yeah.
I don't fall in that group that say, the people that aren't working, they're lazy. No, people have skill gaps. When the economy's bad, you get rejected enough, you stop looking. We need to help those folks to move forward. But I believe most people see value in work for themselves and the future of their family and their children. It's important, this, is that they see mom and dad or at least one of their parents working.
Yeah.
The reality is that it teaches an ethic, there's value in work, and that's how you move your family forward to a better place. My dad built trucks in the line, and my mom worked at the Salvation Army. I have 6 brothers and sisters. It was abundantly clear to me the only way that economically you got forward, the only way that you made life better is you went to work. You got up every day, you went to work, you made a difference, and tried to move forward on the economic and financial ladder.
You've been looking at student loans and the burden that is on this generation to try and dig themselves out from that big, huge debt. And what was this new proposal that you had?
Well, we proposed a bill that allows for employers to write off as an expense any arrangement they make with employees to help pay their student loans.
Okay, because they pay for that now.
They pay for tuition assistance.
Yeah.
If they send somebody for training, they send to the university or whatever, they can write that off as a business expense, which in fact it is. Well, businesses benefit from the education that people bring with them. Unfortunately, those employees often bring a student loan debt. Many of them do. So we allow a tax credit, or a tax deduction, I should say, for employers that take money and help people with their student loans. I think it's another tool that will help businesses, responsible businesses, attract people. Not only will we pay you X, but we will pay you so much per year, every 6 months, whatever the case may be, to reduce your student loan debt. And I think it's a great idea. It's got, I think, 100 co-sponsors. Again, it's bipartisan. So I'm hopeful we can move that.
Where are you at on that one? Where is it in Congress?
It's in a bill. It hasn't moved through committee yet. I'm hopeful it will. And I think the Senate, I've forgotten how many co-sponsors they have. They have a comparable bill. It has momentum there as well. I think how you get momentum right now is you have a bipartisan bill to solve clear problems for people, regardless of their politics. I think those have a chance of moving forward in this current Congress, given a presidential election year. It looks like it's already started.
Yeah.
So
way too early.
Well, my opinion too. Did you see they're going to have start Democratic presidential debates in summer?
2 nights. I mean, they must have such a big cast, a big stage, the stage big enough that they got to divide it into 2 nights.
Well, I think they're going to do a lot what the Republicans did last time. They're going to have the main debate, and then like Thanksgiving, they're going to have the kiddie table. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I guess it's a good thing to have a broad range of philosophies. Why not? But it's early, way too early.
Yeah, it's way too early. What does Canada do? 90 days, I think, or something along those lines, or some of the other countries.
And Europe does. In some cases, it's 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and it's literally prohibited.
I mean, you're a very good communicator, and you should be able to say to your constituents in 90 days, this is what I want to do. This is why you should elect me.
I think people get burned out.
Yeah.
I think they literally. I know around you saw it here, the last election cycle for the governor, the attorney general, all that. People just wanted the ads to stop.
Oh, yeah.
Please just make them stop. I wanted them to stop, and I'm now in the political world. It's like, oh, please stop. I mean, what happens is they start watching non-commercial television.
Correct.
And I think the TV ads now have less and less impact. They're spending more and more money to have less impact.
The broadcasters are real happy about it, but nobody else.
Yeah, they are. In fact, at one point in time in the Detroit market, the last few weeks of the election, you couldn't buy an advertising minute in the Detroit market.
Right.
It wasn't available.
Just amazing.
There's an astonishing amount of money paid.
As you see these 100 new members come in, and as you've been there now 2 years, and we were talking before we went on about John Dingell, and do you think the worm is turning, that it is becoming more of not a congenial kind of place, but a place where people want to work together, like you said, and get things done?
Well, I think one of the things that's changed in Washington is air travels meant that people don't move their families with them to Washington.
Yep.
So they go back and forth to be home, be with their families. And the expectation is to be home more because you don't want to be a Washington insider. But the reality is that the members don't spend enough time together to develop relationships. It takes a lot longer to do. You know fewer people. I think that makes it harder. I think in John Dingell's day, they all spent time together.
Raised their kids
families
together.
Sure. And if you know what, one thing, you look at various sports teams. One thing, if you're raising your kids together, if you share things in common, even when you disagree, you still understand the other person.
Yeah. John
Dingell was a gentleman. He worked hard. He always focused on solving problems. Was his first approach, not political benefit. That was his ethos, and it made a huge difference in how he approached things. I hope to be able to achieve even part of that kind of a legacy just by focusing on problems and working with people who join with me on the problem than worry about their political affiliation. I think that's the way you move things. I don't think he was the longest serving member of Congress in the history of Congress. And I don't know as anybody will ever come close to achieving that, in part because the average duration of someone in Congress now is about 12 years.
Yeah.
They just burn out.
Right.
Which I guess.
Well, it takes so much to get the job. You know, I mean, you got to work, you got to walk the streets, you got to, I mean, the things you have to do in order to get that position is just so difficult.
Well, let's take the last 7 weeks. And again, for me, it's an honor and an opportunity that I really wanted to do to represent our district. But in the last 7 weeks, I'm so happy to be home this week because the last 7 weeks, I was home 5 days, given what's going on with this shutdown and everything, and being part of elected leadership there.
Right.
So the demands of that were enormous, and that's really difficult on everybody around you when you do that. It was a pretty exhausting 7 weeks. It's when it's that intense. So I think that's the change as well. That's made it hard for people to be there much longer than 10, 12 years.
Border Patrol, Border Patrol is
sure.
part of it, but the border protection and all of that issue, hopefully that gets solved, and then can we turn our attention to infrastructure and sewers and things? Do you think that'll happen down the road?
Well, as you know, I'm on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. I've had some conversations with the Democrat chair of the committee now, as well as others. We need to focus on an infrastructure bill, one that people think about infrastructure, like just roads and bridges. And we talked about before the show. It's a lot more. You got water and sewers. You have broadband.
Right.
You have some cases cellular access is a problem. You have short line railroads. There's so many issues, and they vary. You were mentioning my district. On the south end of my district, it's suburban. It's some industrial. It's residential suburbs. Yep. And the northern end, it's agriculture.
Right.
They have different infrastructure needs. My thought on it is you've got to provide grant funding with local matches to allow states and communities to make decisions what works best in those communities rather than have the federal government tell you, you should do this. I mean, let's be honest about it. High-speed commuter rail does not matter in KPAC.
No.
Okay?
No.
Or I was up at Bad Axe yesterday. You know, that's not the issue. Up there, it's broadband internet access and short-line railroad.
Right.
On the southern end of the district, it's bridges, roads.
Right.
They don't have a broadband access. They don't have a problem with those types of things. They have bridge, roads, and water and sewer is a big issue, particularly sewers down there. Those things need to be customized rather than the federal government decide they know best. Two reasons. We'll put more money in the states and communities, less bureaucracy in Washington. God knows that's a good thing. And they'll make better decisions, in my opinion, especially when they have their money in the deal. The Mountain Road project we did, where we got a grant, largest federal grant for a non-federal road in the history of the country. The big thing about that, there was state money that they committed to it. There was county money, City of Sterling Heights,
Everybody
City
had
of
a
Warren.
stake.
I worked with Mark Hackle, with the mayor of Sterling Heights, with the mayor of Warren, cooperatively with members of Congress, with the administration, Secretary Chow. I talked to the president about it. We finally got everyone focused on what was a priority in Macomb County rather than play the political games, and it worked. As a model people ought to pay attention to. $90 million plus the state and federal money, the federal, state money and local money is huge to rebuild that whole corridor. All the way down, including the infrastructure, the water under everything under that. That's a model people ought to pay attention to.
And that is only a flag waving saying we got problems in sewers and infrastructure all over the country. So.
Well, and our responsibility at the federal level is that we should not be responsible for fixing the maintenance problems that people fail to do.
Right.
That's a state community issue. Flip side is let's take Worth Township up further up north. There was some determination that because of the number of septic tanks and all that, they're having some issues with runoff into the lake. Well, now, so there's a mandate that they put in a sewer system there. Well, they're actually taking out, it was a 40-year loan at like 2.5% interest. They were able to pay for that over a 40-year period of time.
With your support, with the government support.
That's what with government support, and my support on the grant. Now the question I reinforce to them is you have to have a plan to maintain that. The federal government's not going to help you maintain it too. That's a local asset if used properly.
Finally, Sioux Locks. That's dear to our heart here in along the St. Clair River.
Yep, underway.
And you were a resident of the city of St. Clair for a long time.
Yes.
We love our ships. Those are our ships, and that's our river.
That's right.
Where are we at on the Sioux Locks?
Well, they've initially begun the initial work to do some dredging, get ready to build that lot. They start the planning and engineering this next year. I had a meeting with Acting Chief of Staff Mulvaney recently.
Yep.
I up to Mick. I said, hey, Mick, Sioux Locks. He said, there's money there, there's money there. I had an opportunity, a unique position being on transportation infrastructure and House Armed Services to finally force the issue that not as an economic issue, it's a national security issue. We can't make steel in the United States if we don't move tack on it.
That's very true.
There's so much goes through that people just didn't understand. We're finally able to get the economic study redone that it's economically makes sense to do. It's a national security issue. Money's being put into it. And I think we've already got money that's been in the budget plan for next year is coming from the president. To be honest with you, once they put enough money into something, they're kind of stuck with it. So I think we'll keep the dog moving for a while. It'll be okay. So
when would you see the first shovel?
I think the engineering study will be next year. Probably the following year will be they'll begin the actual work on that. So it's 2 years out before you see significant activity in terms of digging a hole and all, a whole process of doing work. Next year's
what an engineering project that's going to be.
It's a huge project.
Oh.
But one thing I forced an economic study. The Army Corps of Engineers did an economic study, and the 11 million jobs that would be lost if the pole lock closed in 90 days, it was 11 million jobs. They considered it to be a tertiary issue. It wasn't part of the economics, the valuation of this whole thing. I looked at the chief economist and the commander of the Army Corps. I said, well, let me put you this way. You may think of that as tertiary. Those people elect us as members of Congress. We vote for your budget, so you now tell me how tertiary that is.
That's right. A good way to put it.
Well, you know, as you know, after 35 years in business, I'm able to express things fairly bluntly.
That's right.
But you want to explain to people why we have 11 million people lose their jobs if that pole lock goes down? We worked it out. And some days it takes some direct conversations to do that. But the economic issues would have been massive. And 30 years ago, you think about it, 30 years ago they said we need to do this, and nothing moved for 30 years. Gotta love government.
Oh, it's like the immigration issue. 30 years ago they were talking about it, and they're still talking about it.
Yeah, and immigration, you know what? It's not that hard. And I say that because I've had conversations across the aisle with the past chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, with this banner. There's issues to it that we could solve the majority of them in a day or two. Some people want to use them for political messaging, and we were talking earlier. You have a couple of different versions of members of Congress. Some you don't want to get between them and a TV camera because you'll get hurt, and then others want to work to solve problems. That balance is an issue, and to be honest with you, the 24-hour news cycle hasn't helped that because everyone wants to get everyone has to get something on TV, so they kind of drum up the issues. I turn off the 24-hour news cycle.
I love the ones that say, I'm going to form a committee to explore.
Oh, yeah. Explore presidency?
Yeah, right.
Or explore, you know, it's...
I'm going to you've already made the decision. Just tell us.
Somebody told me a joke, and I think it's particularly appropriate at this point, that a senator wakes up in the morning, looks in the mirror, and sees a future president. And I think, well, how many senators have now announced they're going to run for president?
There's not going to be anybody left in the Senate.
Well, what it's important to see, I think about it, I think there are 5 or 6 already that announced and several is made.
Right.
What will get done in the Senate will be even less than it has been because they'll be unwilling to take those votes, unwilling to make the tough votes because of the presidential election. It'll be gridlock over there worse than it's been. And I don't speak well of the Senate. People talk about, in the House, the Republicans and Democrats, their opposition. The Senate is really the enemy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And there are days I think it applies.
Of the 100 people, back to the 100 people that just came, are there some businessmen? Are there some good people? I mean, you see a lot of them on TV that are flapping their gums, but are there some good people from all over?
Oh, there's a lot of good people from all over. I've met a number of them, both sides of the aisle. I've had a chance to spend time and have dinner. I made a point to try and get small groups to have dinner with them. There's some I don't agree with, obviously.
That's okay.
Respect is important. Respect is also mutual. My approach on that when someone doesn't care to be very cordial, let's put it that way, is I learned a long time ago, it's better off just to ignore stupid.
Right.
It's just less damaging. Why spend? There's only so much time and energy. I think you figure this out when you get a little bit older, Paul. When you're younger, you'll fight with anything.
Right.
When you get older, you figure you've got to manage your energy if nothing else. Why waste energy on things that are negative and unpleasant? Some people, there's a handful, it doesn't take many, they go to Congress, and they go to Congress to see it as a battleground. And when that's your view of it, it's hard to get anything done.
One local question,
Sure.
And that what I didn't ask you about it before we got on the air. Have you heard anything about the Marine City Ferry?
Not since probably fall.
Okay. I think that's a critical one.
It is,
the area.
and I got involved in that. I got involved at the extent to which I contacted the ambassador of the United States from Canada about supposedly there were permits that were applied for by the gentleman in Canada. And
he was having trouble getting them or something?
Well, he checked, and he checked directly with the minister involved in the department, and there were no permits filed.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. I'm trying to put this politely, but I don't know is the gentleman I think has viewed it as the Canadian Coast Guard did this, and they should magically fix it. And it's a Canadian asset. We can't.
Right.
We aren't in a position.
I think it's hurting the city, Marine City.
Oh, it's hurting badly, and I've talked to them about it, and I wish I had a magic answer.
Yeah.
They actually asked me if there were any answer to finding someone else to buy that asset, and just as an American entity. Canada's prepared to help, but they're not going to solve the problem for it. He didn't assure it.
Just curious about it as we end this session. I thank you so much for coming in and giving us an update on the 10th District and
Always
what
happy
the
to stop
Congress
in.
is doing there. Paul Mitchell is his
Paul.
name. He is our representative in Congress for the 10th District. That's about it for this edition of the Roundtable. Thanks for tuning in.